Welcome to Voices of the Case. In this episode, we want to tell you the story of Madeleine McCann, the disappearance that shocked the world.
It's a case that still resonates, doesn't it? So many unanswered questions.
Absolutely. We're talking about Madeleine Beth McCann, born May 12, 2003, in Leicester, England. Just a normal little girl.
Her life started just like any other. But then came May 3rd, 2007.
Right. Just days before her 4th birthday, she vanished. Vanished from a holiday apartment in Praia de Luz, Portugal, down in the Algarve region.
Such a popular holiday spot. And she wasn't alone, was she? She was there with her parents, Kate and Jerry McCann.
Exactly, and her younger twin siblings, Sean and Emily, who were only 2 at the time.
And they were part of a bigger group, right? Friends, other families with kids, all staying together.
Yeah, so-called Tapas 7. Friends from back home. You can imagine a sunshine, relaxation, completely shattered.
So let's paint the picture of that evening. The timeline is, well, it's crucial, isn't it?
It really is. Around 8:30 p.m., Kate and Jerry left the 3 children asleep. The apartment was on the ground floor.
Okay. And they went to have dinner with their friends.
Yes, at a tapas restaurant just nearby. Only about 50 meters away, apparently, within the resort complex.
Close, but still, the children were alone.
They were. But the plan, the arrangement they had, was to check on them regularly.
How regular?
Every 20 to 30 minutes, give or take. Someone from the group would go back, look in.
A system they set up.
Right.
And that continued until
10:00 p.m., that's when Kate McCann went back for her check. And Madeleine wasn't there. Her bed was empty.
Just gone.
Gone. The dread must have been instant, overwhelming. And adding to the confusion, reports said the window and the door to the kids' bedroom were open.
Open. That definitely suggests something more than just wandering off.
Precisely. And there's another detail, something very specific about Madeleine that became vital in the search.
Ah, yes, her eye.
Her right eye. She had a coloboma. It's quite distinctive, like a black line, a sort of keyhole shape running down from the pupil.
Kind of at the 7 o'clock position on the iris. They described it. A unique identifier, sadly.
Became one of the most recognizable features in missing person appeals worldwide.
So Kate discovers she's missing at 10 p.m. What happens immediately after that? Chaos, I assume.
Total chaos. Staff, guests, everyone at the Ocean Club Resort started searching frantically, all through the night.
How long did that initial search go on?
Until about 4:30 in the morning. But nothing. No sign of her.
And the police? When were they brought in?
The local Portuguese police, the GNR, were called quickly, and then things escalated. Interpol was notified.
Right, crossing borders becomes a real possibility in these cases.
They sealed the border with Spain. Airports in both Portugal and Spain were put on high alert, trying to close any escape routes.
A massive operation launched very fast. But even then, were there already complications, some confusing details?
There were. Little things, maybe, but they add up. For instance, Jerry McCann's timing. He reportedly last checked around 9:30 AOPM, not quite fitting the neat 30-minute intervals.
Could just be memory under stress, of course.
Could be. But then the Portuguese police started interviewing the dinner companions, the friends, and they apparently noted some contradictions in their accounts too.
Contradictions about what exactly? Was that ever clarified?
It wasn't always specified publicly, but inconsistencies in timings. Who saw what when? The usual fog of a traumatic event, perhaps. Or perhaps something more.
And then the British police got involved, lending support. They brought resources, didn't they?
They did, including highly specialized search dogs, cadaver dogs, and blood detection dogs.
And those dogs, they apparently alerted to something.
Yes. This became a huge point of contention. The dogs reportedly found traces or scents related to blood and other bodily fluids, both in the apartment.
Okay.
And significantly in the boot, the trunk of the Renault Scenic car the McCanns had rented after Madeleine disappeared.
After. Not the car they had at the time.
No, rented some weeks later. That detail became very important.
And there was more, wasn't there? Something about sedatives?
Reports emerged, yes, about fibers found in the car boot, possibly containing traces consistent with sedative use, linked potentially to Madeleine.
Wow. Okay, that's obviously a very different direction for the investigation.
It inevitably shifted the focus. Dramatically.
Leading to the McCanns themselves being looked at more closely.
Exactly. In September 2007, so about 4 months after the disappearance, both Kate and Jerry McCann were formally declared arguidos,
which means formal suspects in the Portuguese system, right? It's not quite the same as being charged, but it's serious.
Very serious. It grants certain legal protections, but also signals they were under official suspicion.
But that status didn't last indefinitely.
No. Eventually, in July 2008, the Portuguese Attorney General archived the case. They cited a lack of evidence to proceed against anyone, including the McCanns, and lifted their arguido status.
So the case officially stalled. But let's rewind a bit. Before the focus shifted so heavily onto the parents, what were the initial theories?
Well, the police definitely considered abduction from the start, kidnapping.
By who? Any specific type of perpetrator?
They looked into possibilities, like an organized pedophile ring operating internationally, or maybe even a network involved in illegal adoptions. Dark possibilities.
Did the early searches give any clues? You mentioned the guide dogs earlier.
Right, the initial searches with dogs around the resort area itself didn't turn up any scent trail leading away, which was puzzling.
And suspects. Was there anyone else on the radar early on?
There was. One name that came up very quickly was Robert Murat,
Who was he?
a British-Portuguese man who lived very near the Ocean Club Resort with his mother. He actually helped with translations for the McCanns initially.
Okay. And why did suspicion fall on him?
His proximity, perhaps some inconsistencies perceived by police. His house, Casa Liliana, was searched extensively. They even drained his swimming pool.
A major search. What was his alibi?
He said he was home with his mother all evening. But some of the McCann's friends, members of the Tapas 7, later told police they thought they'd seen him near the resort around the time Madeleine vanished, contradicting his alibi.
And he knew someone else the police looked at.
Yes, Sergei Malinka, a Russian computer expert living locally. Murat had apparently asked him about setting up a website.
So Malinka was questioned too.
Oh yes. His computers, hard drives, all seized. Police noted inconsistencies in his statements too, particularly about his contact with Murat around that time.
Lots of threads, but nothing concrete seemed to emerge from that line of inquiry, at least publicly.
Not definitively, no. Both Murat and Malinka always maintained their innocence, and Murat later won libel damages from several media outlets.
Okay, so let's go back to the McCanns becoming arguidos. That was a massive development. What specifically triggered Kate being declared a suspect?
It followed a very long period of questioning, something like 11 hours, and it came after the police received the preliminary results from those British sniffer dogs.
The ones that detected cadaver scent and blood.
Exactly. The reported findings of those dogs in the apartment were key factors cited at the time for making her a suspect.
And Jerry?
He was questioned intensely too for about 9 hours, and then also made an arguido. The theory the Portuguese police seemed to be exploring was, well, that Madeleine had died in the apartment, possibly accidentally, and there'd been a cover-up.
A truly awful scenario to consider, and despite this, they were allowed to leave Portugal.
Yes, shortly after being made arguidos, they returned to the UK. That decision itself caused a lot of controversy.
I can imagine. And the media coverage must have been intense.
Unbelievably intense, and often very accusatory towards them. It got so bad that in March 2008, 2 major British tabloids printed front-page apologies and paid substantial damages for articles suggesting they were involved.
A real roller coaster for them. But the police were looking at other leads besides the McCanns and Murat, right?
There were reports, for example, of another man seen acting suspiciously that night.
Oh, tell me about that.
Some other tourists at the resort reported seeing a man, described as Caucasian, about 1.70 meters tall, possibly carrying something or lurking near the apartments around the critical time.
Another potential suspect, another sighting. Did that lead anywhere?
It doesn't seem to have solidified into a primary lead. And then there was the witness, who saw a man carrying a child towards the marina in Lagos.
Towards the sea. That prompted investigation into boat owners, I recall.
It did. The idea she might have been taken away by a boat was explored, but again, no concrete evidence emerged.
And the DNA found in the bedroom, not Murat's, but...
Right, that sample. It showed an 88% match to the McCann's profile, which isn't conclusive for identification, but suggested it could be from a relative or degraded DNA. It didn't point to an outsider like Murat. Another potential suspect was supposedly identified from this in June 2007, but details are scarce.
Then there was that Swiss connection, wasn't there? A man named vanish?
Or Hans vanish, yes. A Swiss national who was holidaying nearby. Swiss police linked him to the disappearance of another child, Jelenia Linhardt, back in Switzerland.
And what happened to him?
Tragically, he died by suicide in 2007, shortly after Jelenia disappeared. The timing was chilling, but any potential link to Madeleine remained speculative.
This case just has so many threads going in so many directions, international ones too.
Absolutely, like the report about GCHQ, the British intelligence agency, intercepting Arabic text messages mentioning the little blonde girl.
Really? What came of that?
It seems it didn't lead to a breakthrough. And then there was a call to Spanish police, supposedly credible, from a man in Argentina claiming he knew where she was.
Argentina? That's unexpected. Did it pan out?
No, another dead end, it seems. Journalists also made claims. A Spanish reporter, Antonio Toscano, mentioned a convicted pedophile, then later claimed she was alive in Europe.
Theories and claims flying around. And wasn't there something about maps sent to a Dutch newspaper?
The Telegraph, yes. An anonymous message with maps suggesting a burial site near a place called Aram. Police searched, but found nothing.
And going back to the forensic evidence in the apartment, the British police found more later.
Yes, microscopic bloodstains, apparently missed in the initial sweep by Portuguese police, found using more advanced techniques.
Could that clarify things?
Not entirely. The DNA analysis again showed only a partial match, that 88% figure again. It strengthened the possibility she might have come to harm in the apartment, but wasn't conclusive proof.
And then, of course, the sightings. So many reported sightings over the years.
Countless. All over Portugal, Nilas, Lagos, Pinhal Novo, Portimão, and further afield, Malta, Belgium, Spain.
Morocco, too, right? There was that photograph that caused a stir.
Yes, of a little girl named Butra Banaiza who looks strikingly similar, but it was quickly confirmed not to be Madeleine. There were even reports from Chile, Venezuela, Paraguay, each one raising hopes, then dashing them.
It must have been incredibly painful for the family, and that recent case, Julia Fastina.
Ah, yes. In early 2023, a young Polish woman who came forward believing she could be Madeleine, partly due to a similar eye coloboma.
She requested DNA testing?
She did. It generated huge media attention.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, the test confirmed she wasn't Madeleine. A very sad situation all around.
So with all these leads fizzling out over the years, where does the official investigation stand now? Is it still active?
It is, though scaled back. Scotland Yard's investigation, Operation Grange, started in 2011. They treated it as a likely criminal act abduction, or maybe a burglary gone wrong.
Did they identify new suspects?
They released e-fits in 2013 based on witness accounts from around the time. The operation was reduced in 2015, but they said they'd pursue any significant leads.
And then came the German connection.
A major development in June 2020. German prosecutors announced they were investigating a specific suspect, Christian Bruckner.
What was his background?
A German national, 43 at the time, with a criminal record including child sexual abuse. Crucially, he was known to be living in the Algarve, traveling in a camper van, around the time Madeleine disappeared.
And the German authorities believe?
They stated publicly they're working on the assumption that Madeleine is no longer alive and that he may be responsible. They even appealed for information on a major German TV crime show.
A very strong statement. Has that led to charges in her case?
Not specifically for Madeleine's disappearance or murder, as of our current knowledge. He's serving time or facing charges for other serious crimes in Germany, but the investigation into the McCann case is reportedly ongoing.
It keeps the focus on a potential external abductor, contrasting with that earlier Portuguese police theory.
The accident hypothesis, yes. That Madeleine died in the apartment, perhaps sedated, and it was covered up. That was definitely a strong line of inquiry for the Policia Judiciaria, fueled by the dog findings and the blood traces.
And didn't WikiLeaks add another layer to the story regarding police cooperation?
It did. In 2010, leaked diplomatic cables suggested British police had helped the development of evidence against the McCanns, referring to the lab work and the dogs provided. The interpretation of that phrase remains debated.
It just highlights the complexity and the international dimensions. No wonder it captured public attention so intensely. Which brings us to things like the Netflix documentary, The Disappearance of Madeleine McCann, released in 2019.
Right. That brought many of the key figures and conflicting theories back into the spotlight. It showed just how many different perspectives and narratives exist around this single tragic event.
A case with so many possibilities, so many leads investigated, yet still, no definitive answer. The mystery endures.
It truly does. A chilling puzzle with a missing piece at its heart.
A piece the world hopes will one day be found.
That's it for this episode of Voices of the Case. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next time.